everybody, welcome back. You are listening to Joygasm, a video game and movie podcast. I'm Russ, Xbox Live, Toaster 360. My stupendous sibling Steve, Xbox Live, Stevavitch, joins me. And a dragon just got launched into space in episode 175 today, May 30th, 2020. We're going to do what we always do, catch up with each other and find out what we've been playing and watching, all that fun stuff. We also have some little news stories we'd like to go over with each other. Gaming news has the Sony PS5 media event scheduled, and BlizzCon has been canceled for 2020, unfortunately. Movie news features a certain Blue Blur getting a sequel, and technology news focuses on Square Enix taking their IP into a new entertainment AI territory. Our topic of the day is the SpaceX launch, which you can fast forward to if you look at the timestamps located in this episode's detailed section of iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Otherwise, just keep on listening. Welcome to the weekend, Sir Steve.
Russ, I did something I probably shouldn't have done, but I used to do a lot.
You pooped on your neighbor's lawn, didn't you?
I did. But it was only for fertilizing purposes. No, I'm just kidding.
Did it look like chocolate ice cream? Did it have the nice little swirl?
I was tired of seeing this dry, non-green spots. I figured a little bit of extra fertilizer might help them out, you know? So, yeah. No,
especially with all the health bars that you eat and protein bars, I'm sure it'll turn the grass purple.
What's that? I don't know. An alien must have landed there or something. I don't know. I'm going to move along.
The poop itself starts lifting weights.
Oh, man. I don't know how you're going to get rid of that now. But anyway. So what I did, wife went to sleep last night, and I played a little more God of War. And
Good for you.
I'm at the spot where I have to get the black rune. And you know, I think when I play it all over again, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to look for like secret spots until I progress further in the story, because I found all these little chambers where you're supposed to get the chisel or whatever and then open them up. In which case there's like a Valkyrie fight or something. And the reason I'm going to do that is because they show up on the map once you found them. And then I can't remember how to get to them. And sometimes they show up on the map because like you have to go to a different realm, but it's on like the regular world map. And so I've spent like all this time trying to get back to these little secret chambers to open them up. And it doesn't, like, I can't seem to find them. So anyway, I think the next time I play that through. Anyway, so yeah, I'm digressing here. So I was playing that for a while, and then I thought, I should just get ready for bed. It's it's a little after midnight. Got to get in the shower. So I come downstairs and I think, wait a minute, there's that one extra chest that I want to get in Legends of Runeterra. And so I thought, this won't take long. I'll just get this real quick. Well, it didn't take. It wasn't quick, Russ. It wasn't 5 minutes because then I got distracted and I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can edit my deck, and then how's this deck, and then how's this card? This other card's not working for me. I'll swap that out. Finally, at about 2:30 in the morning, I thought, okay, it's about time to get in the shower and go to bed. So I finally got to bed around 3 in the morning.
Around 3 in the morning.
And so then I was tossing and turning quite a bit because I had thoughts of
sugar plums dancing in your head. Yes,
something
I know.
along the sort. Yeah. And so finally, I was woken up with kisses, and then it was just my wife saying, hey, I'm going to run out real quick. I'll be right back. And I said, okay, what time is it? And she said, it's 10. I went, okay, great. I'm going to get up in a little bit. And then finally I woke up and thought, I feel better. I'm still pretty groggy though. What time is it? It was 12:50. So there was my first part of the day.
See, I was secretly hoping that you were having some sort of, normal, well-to-do dream that kind of turned into something a bit more hot and heavy. with your wife, and then you wake up to your wife's chihuahua tonguing you and causing you to freak out. That's what I was hoping for, Steve.
I knew that's what you were thinking, actually. I knew you were going to say something right around those lines. While, like, towards the end of that story, I'm like, I know he's going to mention this. Maybe I should say something. Let's just see what happens.
Let's just see where it goes. Let's see where he takes it. You have that morbid curiosity with me, don't you?
I don't know if I call it curiosity, but sure, for this purpose, we'll call it that.
Oh. Well, other than today, Steve, what have you been up to? What have you been playing? I mean, you've been playing some God of War, which is good.
Yeah, I've just been playing God of War, and
have you been enjoying God of War? Have you been loving God of War, Steve? Has God of War knocked your socks off?
I wouldn't say I love it. I am really enjoying it. I'm not going to say I love it. What I'm doing now is I went to this realm that I haven't gone before, but it's like a fiery kind of volcano-y. Looks like the classic last boss area, but it's not the last boss area. I mean, I highly doubt it is. But
it's not. It's
a bunch of trials, and so I got to I think it was the 4th sword, 4 out of 6, and then I just decided at that point, I thought, well, I should go to bed because this is going to take all night. And of course, I did something else instead of go to bed. So that's where I am. I haven't continued the story after the Black Rune. I just decided, man, there's got to be some other secret stuff that I'm not seeing here. So anyway, some of those Valkyries though, I have 2 of them. I got 2 of them. And then I went back to where was this one? I think it was the icy level. No, it wasn't the icy level. I don't know. Where did I go? I forgot where I went. But there's 2 of these chambers so far that are like crazy difficult. There's one of those witches who like throws poison at you. And her health bar is purple, so you know she's tough, right? Anybody with a purple health bar, you know they're pretty strong.
The Valkyries, yeah, I remember the Valkyries being especially tough.
Right. But this one was different because I didn't see a Valkyrie. There was a bunch of enemies, but you had to defeat like the witch. Maybe the Valkyrie was there. I'm not remembering right. But I tried to get there, and I mean, maybe it was one of those like dimensional tiers I'm thinking of. But anyway, one hit and you're done, and you're dead. You're done. You're out. And so it doesn't matter if you come in with full life. If she hits you once, you're dead. Like, great. This is fair. Awesome. So then now the Valkyrie I do remember is that she also had a purple bar, and there's no real attack that you can block. Like, if she has that red ring that comes out, you can't block it. It's too strong of an attack, and you just gotta like somersault out of the way. Well, that's all of her attacks. And so I'm like, well, what else to do? I'm like, I can hit her. And I think the best I did was I got her life halfway down. I'm like, I can't anymore. I got to do something else. I'm going to like break something. So that's when I stopped.
You're actually going to become the God of War in your own house.
Yeah, I'm going to go on a rage. Jeez. So that's what I've been playing. Other than that, wife and I continue to watch the Iron Fist on Netflix, and that's okay. It's fine. So far Daredevil has been the best. I would say followed by Luke Cage, followed by Iron Fist, and then of course last, and so deservingly last, is Jessica Jones. But we can't wait till all the Marvel Defenders and see what actually happens. The fight scenes out of Daredevil, man, those are exhausting. Like they film these things in like one take, and the guy's just beating the crap out of these people, like just martial arts everywhere, jumping off the wall. I mean, it's nuts. It's almost exhausting. Like some of these fight sequences are like 10 minutes long. You're like, oh my gosh, how do they have energy for this? Anyway, pretty intense. Sure, our friend Big Baby Moose will understand and probably agree.
Absolutely.
But that's what's been going on with me, Russ. What about you?
Well, I've been playing quite a few things. I haven't been watching really anything. I know Legends of Runeterra has been taking up a large swath of my free time, and I know that I've seen you from time to time sign on and play. Did you play some of that this week?
Well, I just told you I did, Russ.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure it was.
Did.
I want to make sure that like it wasn't like you just had it on your computer screen. You weren't like playing through it. You know what I mean? Because sometimes like I'll leave the game on my screen and get distracted and leave it up there. People think I'm on there, and then I'll get like texts later on like, "Hey, how come you're not responding to my little invite?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry." But no, I've been having a lot of fun with it. The one thing that I'm noticing is that the difficulty with the AI has gone up for some reason. For I would say a pretty long stint, I was actually dominating the AI pretty well. And I don't know if they have some sort of AI difficulty increase that ratchets up the more things you unlock. Because you know how you have the different regions that you can unlock loot boxes for and that sort of thing. It makes me wonder if the higher up you go collectively with each of those regions, that the AI suddenly gets tougher. The other thing is I started playing against actual people, just random people who are playing the same game. Haven't been having a whole lot of luck with that, Steve, I got to say. I think I win about 30% of the time and I lose about 70% of the time. So I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I'm doing wrong. The battles themselves, I would say for the most part, are pretty close. Like we're kind of down to one of us having like 2 or 3 points left, and the other person having about 5 or 6, something like that. So it's kind of getting down there, but for some reason I'm having difficulty closing the deal on the lion's share of these things. So still working on that. I also created a new deck, which I call the Supremely Annoying deck, and I essentially I took all the characters that I find to be really annoying in the game and just put them all together in a deck. And so I'm still trying to tweak it and get it kind of honed in a bit and whatnot. But there is something very oddly satisfying in actually taking all those characters and then just using them as a deck, and whether it's against the AI or against other people or whatever. I don't know, but maybe it's the sadist inside me. I have no idea. But it is still just a really fun game. Probably one of my favorite games of 2020 so far. I got farther in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm stuck at this kind of boss fight situation. Do you remember fighting what's called a Hell House in the original Final Fantasy VII game, Steve?
The Hell House?
Yes, the Hell House.
Vaguely.
Well, so I'm in the area with Mr. Is it like Cornelio or Cornelia or something? Cornelio? I don't know. There's some kind of leader of the kind of gambling casino area of like Sector 7 or something like that. And it's kind of more of a seedy area. And Tifa has gone in undercover, and he's gonna, I guess, like he's planning on like having her be his concubine or something like that. And so you have to go in with Aerith and try and rescue her. And you're trying to make your way through kind of like this gladiator battle arena situation. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. But I mean, it's like actually like a house that you're fighting, right? It's like this little shack.
It's literally like this weird supernatural poltergeist looking shack thing.
Right.
Sometimes like the front door will open and suck in one of the characters, and then you have to try and make your way out of it, and the other character is beating on the house, and then it flies around. Anyway, it's a very long battle, and I battled it, I think once or twice, and that was it. I was like, okay, I lost. I don't feel like going through this whole minutia again, so I put it down, Steve. Mm-hmm. We'll see when I'm in the mood to battle the Hell House again. But the little times like that, it kind of kills the fun factor for me, where I'm like, golly, man, like I don't know how Steve really had the endurance back in the day. Because when I think about it, it's like that game and Gran Turismo. I remember you started doing like the endurance races or whatever. And like, wasn't there a day when you were on like one single race for like 8 hours straight or something? And it was like, one lap, like 100 something or other. I can't even remember how many laps it was, but I mean, it was just, I don't know how you did it.
Yeah. Man, I didn't have a life. I don't know, man. If that took place today, there would have had to been some like esports, endurance races, kind of like the 24-hour Le Mans or something, but digital style, Gran Turismo style, because I don't see how anybody can do that nowadays. It's just, I mean, you learn the track and you start lapping people, and it's the same thing for hours on end. Oh gosh. It was like, I think it was another one of them was like 60 laps in the Nürburgring. It was like one of the largest tracks on the planet. And it takes one lap takes like forever. And there's a bunch of hard turns and whatnot. But 60, golly. Anyway, so I think with Final Fantasy, I think the turn-based battle mechanics was good for patience, because all you had to do, you were basically, you didn't have to wander around the enemy to fight. You were just in one spot, and the enemy was in one spot, and you just took turns attacking. And so I think with the remake, when you have to run around and change your character and kind of strategize a little bit more, if that doesn't work out for you in the end, you got to start all the way over. That's a lot more activity happening than just, watching like 3 time bars or 4 time bars go up and then choosing attack or defend or cast a spell or heal or whatever. And so there's a lot less, thought that has to go into it. So I think at some point, I could see you getting exhausted with it, but I don't remember it taking that long. I remember that one did take a while, but I don't remember getting, I gotta go to something else. I think if I died, I just continued, and that was it. I don't remember that one taking that long, but I don't know, maybe they did something different in the remake. Who knows?
Yeah, well, again, I'm not used to playing Final Fantasy VII, so I'm not conditioned in terms of how long these battles usually last. I will say this is probably one of the longest battles I have gone through in the game so far, and I know that there will be battles in the future that are far longer, but I think too, because I'm older, I think like it'd be one thing if I was like 13 or 15 years old and I'm playing the game when I have nothing but free time on my hands, but like I just don't have much free time anymore. And so going through it, if I don't get past it, I'm like, I think I'm going to play something else, or I got some errands I got to run, or take care of the family. I don't know, something. But anyway, we'll see how the future responds to me. Maybe Lady Luck will shine down on me, because I gotta say I was pretty close. I think I was within like a little ooch of the life bar going completely empty, and that's probably what kind of killed the motivation for me too, where I'm like, I don't want to go through that again. Other than that, I received my Nintendo Switch in the mail from Roy, so thank you, Roy, and more specifically Roy's wife Terry. You're the best. That was fantastic of you to do so. And as a result, I have bought my daughter Animal Crossing. So I was hounded over and over and over again, having to try and find this game. And so I was able to buy it through the e-store that Nintendo has on their platform. So she's been playing that nonstop. She's been really in this Nintendo type mode. One of the funny things about that game is that there's actually a fair amount of dialogue that you have to read. And so because my daughter is 5, she doesn't know how to read yet. She relies on me to be able to tell her what exactly is being said, which in a way I think is pretty cool, because there is kind of a daddy-daughter opportunity there where like I can kind of tell her what the story is and what the tasks are at hand. And then she gets to be the one to go and carry out those different actions and that sort of thing. So it's turning out to be pretty cool. And I'm glad I'm finally able to have some kind of, exposure to the huge popularity of Animal Crossing. I also bought Streets of Rage 4 for the Nintendo Switch just because I wanted to see what it was like on the game. It's only $25. I was like, I'll get that. And speaking of Streets of Rage 4, you and I played that earlier this week and broadcasted it on Twitch, in which case you died very early on and I carried us all the way to victory and beat the last boss by myself. That was so weird. I was not expecting that to happen at all, but that's kind of where it was. And then we unlocked some of the more Streets of Rage 1 and 2 and 3, the kind of the OG pixel characters, which I gotta say, it was fun to be able to play as that. There was an acute enjoyment when it came to that, just because for some reason we were able to kick a whole lot more booty than the other characters due to the fact that the punch frames are like 2 or maybe even 1 frame, like 1 or 2 frames each. And so it was pretty satisfying, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, but I will have to add that this last time that we went to the last boss, you did it in 1 take. It's like we didn't die and have to redo it again and again and again and again like the previous time. And I thought that was going to be the case. I died, early on, and then you carried it through and then stayed alive all the way to the end. You didn't start over, because if you did start over, then I would be back.
Right.
So, yeah, man. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And all of a sudden it was like way easy. Like, why wasn't it this easy before?
I will say, though,
the difficulty setting.
I know what I think that it was just luck, because I have tried playing that against that boss by myself and I was disposed of very easily and quickly. So I don't know what was going on. I think, like I said, I just got lucky with that. But it is a fun game. Like, even after we beat it, like, I'd still be down to play that game every now and then. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would. Well, yeah, I would. Especially if there's some DLC. But it got me thinking if they're actually going to release like a Final Fight version, because I mean, why not? Why wouldn't they? You know, if they release this and then Capcom has been releasing like their I think I forgot what they called it. It was like a beatbox or something. They called it. It was all like their beat 'em up games in one like package. But if they actually did like a remake for a Final Fight, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, Final Fight would be awesome. I'd love to see a Final Fight remake, as well as Double Dragon. I mean, come on. I wonder which company it was that actually made Double Dragon. Like, who owns the rights to that game?
Well, I want to say Konami. I could be wrong.
Well, I want a next-gen experience of Double Dragon. I'm just saying. I also bought Link's Awakening and Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch. Those games came out last year. I did not have a chance to actually get around to buying them, so I'm glad I was able to pick those up. I haven't tried them out yet, so I'll be able to give you a little bit of an update next week on that, Steve. And finally, did you ever look at that trailer I sent to you? That it's called Ninjala for the Switch?
Yeah.
I think the art direction on that's actually pretty cool. It definitely is more on like the kiddie side of things, but I don't know. I'm going to have to try and find some reviews on it and see what some of the critics think. What do you think about it?
It's
judging from your groan, it sounds as though it's going to cause you to buy yourself a Switch.
It's not for me, Russ. It's
Well, I say let's segue into some gaming news, Steve. Sony announces the PS5 event. Sony is officially confirming its next PlayStation 5 event will be held on Thursday, June 4th of next week. The event will be at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time. And by the way, that would mean 3 p.m. Central Time. And Sony is promising a, quote, look at the future of gaming on PS5. It will run for a bit more than an hour and feature a, quote, first look at the games you'll be playing after PlayStation 5 launches this holiday, end quote, according to Jim Ryan, president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Sony is not expected to reveal every detail of the PS5 console at this event, and further events are rumored to be planned for the coming weeks and months. Quote, this is part of our series of PS5 updates, and rest assured, after next week's showcase, we will still have much to share with you. Sony has not yet shown off the PS5 console itself, and it is not clear if that will change at the June 4th event. Steve, do you think that Sony is actually going to reveal what the PS5 console looks like next week?
No.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think they're going to keep it secret. I think they're just going to show the games, and I think closer to the holiday, or maybe a few months later, they'll show the system. But I think that they want to really have a big showcase for it. I don't think it'll be, like, for example, Microsoft had, like, just a few folks like say a few things like from their home office or whatever. I don't think that's going to be what Sony wants to do to reveal the system. I think they would, even if it was something that they had a backdrop for, or something that was pre-recorded. I don't know. I think they really want to focus on the games this time. I think they were going to push that off.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think that what's working in Sony's favor is they have decidedly gone in contrast to Microsoft, where Microsoft wants to get actually a fair amount of information regarding the Xbox Series X out sooner rather than later. They, being Sony, have decided to start to dole it out kind of in a, I don't know. It's not even a steady pace. It's like they'll just drop these little nuggets here and there, and I think it's working out for them. How many games do you think that they're going to show next week?
Well, I would say about let's see. The show is supposed to be a little over an hour, so maybe about 20 games around there.
Really, 20 games. Now, do you think that they are going to be using some of that hour to have some of their talking heads do a lot of yapping?
I would highly doubt it. I would highly doubt it. I think that when they were revealing the specs of the system, and they had one of their people up there, talking up the podium and saying what everything can do, I think they probably didn't get the best feedback. I mean, I think anybody who actually knew what all that stuff was, then they would go, "Oh man, the system sounds like incredible." And then the rest of us who go like, "Oh, I pay attention to the way the game looks and sounds and plays. I don't know what a teraflop is. I don't know what SSD drive is faster. I don't know how much faster it is in my PC." The rest of us are going, "Great, thanks. Can you show us something?"
Well, and I think that Sony already did that at a previous media press conference.
Right. I know. That's what I'm saying. I think they already did that, didn't get a good response, and so for this, I think they're just going to, stuff a sock in it and show a lot more games. Especially with Microsoft when they did their thing, gameplay, and it was hardly barely any gameplay, and then they didn't get a good response back. I don't think Sony's going to want to make the same mistake.
Totally agree. The other story that I have here is that BlizzCon has been canceled. The online event has now been planned for 2021. Blizzard has officially announced that there will be no BlizzCon due to, surprise, surprise, COVID-19 pandemic. In a new blog post, Blizzard officially announced that, quote, "It's come to the very difficult decision to not have BlizzCon this year. However, the company says that it wants to, quote, channel the BlizzCon spirit and connect, unquote, with fans online. Because of the logistics and different factors involved, any BlizzCon online alternative, quote, will most likely be sometime early next year in 2021. So, yeah, it's, to me, I think the idea of, squeezing 50,000 to 100,000 people, whose hygiene is probably not the best, combined with what all has been going on, may not be the safest thing to do. So I applaud that decision. Do you agree, Steve?
I do.
Well, excellent. Segueing right into movie news, there is one particular story that makes me happy. Sonic 2 movie officially in the works. Paramount Pictures and Sega confirmed the news on May 28th, Variety reports, with director Jeff Fowler and screenwriters Pat Casey and Josh Miller returning to develop the follow-up. The movie hit... This is what's kind of crazy. When I was reading this article, the movie hit theaters on Valentine's Day of this year, which is crazy because that was just enough time to give it $306.8 million at the box office. And that was pretty close to being right before all the theaters had to shut their doors due to COVID-19. So it's pretty crazy to think about the timing of that, where when you think of when Sonic was originally supposed to be launched and how they had to delay it due to the fan outcry of how Sonic looked, the very notion that they could have gotten screwed over a second time due to the pandemic thing, that would have just been terrible. It probably would have been the final nail in the coffin of getting this movie out and having it be a success. But it's done pretty well, I must say. And it actually makes me wonder if it will actually become the highest grossing movie of 2020 because the theaters are just closed. I mean, I think they're starting to kind of sort of reopen here and there, but I've been hearing stuff about how AMC might be filing for bankruptcy. Did you hear about that?
I did. Yeah.
That's insane, Steve. What kind of a world are we living in when AMC goes bankrupt? That's not cool. Well, so what are your thoughts on the idea of having a Sonic 2, Steve?
Yeah, I can get behind it. I wasn't too crazy about
Get behind it, Steve. Come on. Don't be a wet blanket.
I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, Russ. I'm just saying, if anybody was listening to our review of the movie, they would have heard that I was kind of so-so with it. So I'm not, on those lines, I'm not crazy excited that there's going to be another Sonic. Hey, remember that movie you were so-so about? All right, they're making another one. You're right. Those 2 thumbs up, huh?
But what if the sequel...
To the side?
See, I remember you saying that you wanted the movie to actually predominantly be in the world of Sonic. Like, right. You would probably be more into that. What if the sequel was like that, Steve, huh? What if it was like that? What if the entire world was like Green Hill Zone?
That would be something to look into. A lot more computer graphics and not so much like, Sonic being computer graphics and a real world environment. I would rather have it be in like what they showed, what possibly was Green Hill Zone in the beginning of the movie. That was pretty darn cool. But indeed. I don't know if that necessarily makes a great movie, but I would definitely be wanting to see it if it was more along those lines, Russ.
I see. Now, going into technology news. So this story intrigued me, and I still don't have like a complete picture of this, but I wanted to share it. The headline reads, Square Enix establishes new company to pursue entertainment AI. Now, this is an article by VentureBeat, and they reported that Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course, is a smash hit for publisher Square Enix. And like the last time a Final Fantasy VII game put Square on top of the world, it wants to diversify. If you recall, after the success of Final Fantasy VII, that's when they started making the movie Final Fantasy The Spirits Within. And that was part of their kind of diversifying of company kind of thing. So this time around, Square Enix is building on its AI technology with the launch of Square Enix AI and Arts Alchemy. And I have a quote here. It's kind of a long quote, so bear with me. It says, "We believe that new forms of entertainment will be created against a backdrop of ongoing technological innovations, as exemplified by XR, which means extended reality, and next-generation telecommunications standards such as 5G. Now, that was from the Square Enix press release. It goes on to say, Square Enix AI and Arts Alchemy will launch its operations with the goal of pursuing R&D efforts that apply the Square Enix Group's knowledge and expertise in AI and art, not only to games, but to the broader concept of entertainment AI. So my question is, what does this mean for Square Enix? And there is a part of the article that talks about how analysts and technologists are all highlighting AI as the next major oncoming revolution. Square Enix obviously wants in on that. I don't know. To me, it's interesting to look at. I think the part that I don't understand, though, is how exactly is Square Enix going to leverage this type of avenue, considering the fact that they're a game developer. And I know that there have been people talking about how, maybe they're going to have like some of the digital characters from like the Final Fantasy world be able to interact with you. I don't know if that's going to be through your phone or virtual reality or whatever else, but what are your thoughts on that, being a Final Fantasy fan, Steve?
I think it's a little bit far-fetched. I think it's a cool idea, but I think it's a little bit too far-fetched. I think that Square... here's what I think. I think that Square needs to focus on branching out some of their games, because I think as of late, Square hasn't had the limelight as much as some of these other game company has, like CD Projekt Red, for example, or Ubisoft. And when people think of Square, they think of Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy, the games have been relatively redundant for a while. That being said, Final Fantasy you can get on mobile. You can get Final Fantasy 7 on mobile. You can get Final Fantasy 15 on mobile. So I think that maybe perked their ears, and maybe like on the Android system or something, if they wanted to make an AI where you didn't have to use Hey Google to do whatever you wanted to do on your Android phone, you could have Tifa, or you could have Sid or somebody be your AI. I mean, that would be kind of cool, but at the same time, I mean, it might be a moneymaker for them. I don't know if the cost would to research that and to develop it would equal what it would be to have X amount of people get it on their phone. But it would be cool for a while.
Yeah, I think I would need more information ultimately as to what they're planning on doing, because I could see it easily being kind of a fringe thing or like a flash in the pan novelty where you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, this is an interesting concept. I think it's appealing to a certain level, but is it going to be some sort of profound engagement where the user experience compels me to continue interacting with it, using it, that sort of thing? It does make me think about like how in Blade Runner 2049, how you had that one holographic synthetic character that was going around. I don't think it's going to be advanced like that, but it does make me think about like how if you have certain types of virtual or digital companions, it does make me wonder if that's kind of what they're exploring or if there's going to be something else entirely. But it does make me curious. I mean, I do applaud them for actually wanting to expand and diversify into other areas. I just hope that they're not stretching themselves too far, just because I really want them to stay in business. But I hear that they're making an absolute ton of money, so good for them. And that is your technology news. Well, regardless of whether you were go or no go for launch, it's time for the topic of the day.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Spot and Dog.
America has launched, and so rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of a new generation continuing the dream.
Our topic of the day is the SpaceX launch. This actually happened today, and I, for one, was able to watch this thing happen live, where they had a successful launch. They had perfect weather, and it was fantastic to be able to see a space shuttle make its way up into outer space. I think the last time I saw something like that, I want to say I was probably a kid, like in like the late 80s or something like that. Or I think it was like the last time. Not to say that was the last time that Americans were shot up into space, because I think the last time that actually happened was like 2011. But it was crazy to actually see it. And I thought it would be fun for us to talk about as more of a tech subject on the matter, because I think there's a lot of things about this whole event that it's kind of worth geeking out over and exploring and whatnot. Did you have a chance to check it out yourself, Steve?
I did. I was a little bit late to the show. I remember I clicked on it and the rocket was still sitting there, and so I thought, I gotta watch that, and I went to go get something to eat, and I was heating up, and then I heard nothing but a coming out of my phone. I thought, what is that sound? I forgot what I was. And so then I kept on eating, and I thought, the space launch. And so then I ran back and grabbed my phone and was watching it. I think the last space launch, well, not including SpaceX, of course, but like the last like NASA only space launch I've watched, that sticks out in my head was when they had the faulty design in the rocket, and the whole thing exploded on its way up.
That was in the 80s. That was under President Ronald Reagan. Yeah, I remember as a child being horrified. I think we were both in the room as we saw that unfold, as many other Americans and people around the world did too. I think that was a horrific thing that occurred, but luckily they were able to since then have multiple successful launches with astronauts. And so I actually, I wanted to talk about how the idea of space exploration makes you feel and how it makes me feel. Because I don't know about you, but like when I'm sitting there today and I'm watching this thing take place and you see it get down to the final minute, I can't help but think about like what the two astronauts must be thinking about while they're sitting there. And especially as it gets down to like 30 seconds and then the final 10-second countdown, it is just, they've got to be having a huge reservoir of adrenaline just pumping through themselves. Especially, I don't even know if they had been up to space before or if this was their first time. I had heard that they are astronauts, and I guess like they've worked through NASA and that sort of thing. So I unfortunately I don't have all that information, but I just found myself just getting really excited and seeing it launch and that sort of thing. I don't know, that there is a natural sense of euphoria that occurs when I watch a rocket like this take place, and I think it has to do with it being kind of a symbol of humanity, like just in terms of its desire to go explore. And granted, like this particular shuttle, they're making their way over to the International Space Station. That is what their mission is when it comes to this. But do you get that way too? Like when you watch a space shuttle taking off, are you filled with like a sense of pride, or are you like kind of reminded of what it's like to be a 10-year-old again, and you're just looking at it with admiration and excitement?
I do have a sense of pride, but it's a scary excitement. That's more than pride. Pride in the sense that we haven't done anything for space exploration since like 2011 on American soil, really. What we've been doing is actually the Russians have been going back and forth into space, and we have been basically paying the Russians for a seat on their craft. And so I'm glad that we're spending money and American dollars for American companies to send American ships up into space. But it's because this is not a normal thing. There's a ton of risk. I mean, just in recent memory, they have been testing rockets and that have failed. And then they had basically one successful attempt where it was flawless and perfect. And then they were going to go right back up. And so because it's so expensive and there's a bunch of unknowns, I don't know. I think that these astronauts would be on board. Like that's why they do what they do. And yes, let's go. But at the same token, since there's so much that can go wrong, they got to feel like, okay, I'm going up. I'm not sure if I'm coming back. I think it's a little bit of maybe a soldier mentality where, if you're going off to war for a different land, you don't know if you're coming back. Mm-hmm. So this is not like you're going to get shot, but I mean, this space exploration is still quite a mystery. Usually we just send stuff up there to put satellites or maybe have little drones to explore planets. But by and large, there hasn't been a whole lot of people that go up and down from space regularly. I mean, we're not living the science fiction days right now. So, I mean, I think it's awesome. And I love seeing that ship go up there and then they're in orbit and I can see planet Earth there. I'm like, yep, there she is. There's the planet. She's beautiful. and they're up there and they're far from home. I'm thinking, man, they're lucky, but I'd be like, what happens if you piss from your pants right now because of where you are, what you're doing? How do you fix that problem?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they have figured out all those different parameters. But I see what you're saying. I definitely think that they probably have anxiety and butterflies in the stomach and, how there's any number of things that could go wrong. Absolutely. I don't think they're going to
catapult people up there and without, figuring a lot of the stuff out. But it's basically brand spanking new still. That's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. I was able to find some fun trivia regarding this particular craft as well as the launch itself. And I did so by looking up various questions, Steve. That's what Google's good for. I was curious how many Crew Dragon capsules are there? Because I saw the one that went up and I was thinking, well, are there any others? As of May of this year, there are 9 Crew Dragon flights contracted to carry crew. 7 are contracted by NASA. 1 crewed test flight and 6 operational crew rotation missions. And then there are 2, 1 each, that are contracted by private companies, Axiom Space and Space Adventures. So I did not know that. Did you know that, Steve? No, you didn't.
But did you know? Did you know that Boeing is also working with NASA to do their own little space thing?
I do actually, as a kind of a byproduct of looking up the answers to my questions. The second question, Steve, is actually one that answers the question that you just posed, which is, does the Crew Dragon have a toilet? And the answer is that the Cargo Dragon can carry 3,307 kilograms, which, by the way, equals 7,291 pounds, to the International Space Station. The Crew Dragon has a capacity of 7 astronauts, but there are only 4 seats that are used for NASA missions. Now, above the seats, there is a 3-screen control panel, a toilet with privacy curtain, and the docking hatch. So there you have it, Steve. If you have to use the John, you go above your fellow colleagues and just be grateful that you are in outer space where everything floats in case there's a little dribble. So now, how does the SpaceX Dragon work? I'm sure that is the first question that comes to your mind, Steve, and I'm here to give you the answer. Towards the base of the capsule and contained within the nose cone are the Draco thrusters, which allow for orbital maneuvering. Dragon's trunk not only carries unpressurized cargo, but also supports the spacecraft during ascent. The trunk remains attached to Dragon until shortly before re-entry into Earth's atmosphere.
Draco or Draco?
That is a very good, it's probably Draco, now that you bring that up. I've not actually heard anyone say it out loud. But then again, I am a fool. So now another question I had is that, and this is kind of a funny question, but is SpaceX with NASA. SpaceX has flown 20 resupply missions to the International Space Station under a partnership with NASA. NASA also awarded SpaceX a further development contract in 2011 to develop and demonstrate a human-rated Dragon, which would be used to transport astronauts to the International Space Station and return them safely to Earth. So up until this moment, there have been others that have been used predominantly just to, I guess, bring supplies up, unmanned capsules, I guess. Steve, one of the questions I was looking for too is how much do astronauts make? Because I'm curious. They're always kind of one of those publicized heroes. Like if you're an astronaut, you're kind of a badass, and I'm not even sure like what all is involved in order to meet the prerequisites of being an astronaut. NASA astronauts must pass a grueling application process before being selected. Their annual salaries are determined using a government pay scale, and starting out fall under 2 grades. There is the GS-12 and GS-13. According to the 2018 government pay scale, an astronaut earns between $63,800 and $98,300 $317 per year, which was actually a bit lower than I was expecting.
I just Googled it now that you had already Googled it. Civilian astronauts are awarded a pay grade of anywhere from GS-11 to GS-14. So the income range is pretty wide. Salaries start at $66,000 a year. Seasoned astronauts, on the other hand, Russ, can earn upward of $144,000 a year.
See, that's more in line with what I was thinking.
That's what Buzz is making, Russ.
Well, Buzz Aldrin is a millionaire. What are you talking about? He just steps foot somewhere and they're like, "Here, give him $1 million."
Yeah, I have to work a day in his life after that.
Get himself cameos with Optimus Prime. Shoot. Let me see here. How does SpaceX make their money? This was one that I was curious about because I know that Elon Musk owns SpaceX, but there's only so much money that he has. There has to be some sort of business model behind this. While SpaceX has made significant advances in space technology, it currently makes money purely by launching satellites into low Earth orbit and by transporting cargo to and from the International Space Station. Notably, the company charges customers much less per launch compared to other players. And it makes total sense. I mean, it's nice that they have some sort of business model that sustains them and allows them to explore their own ventures. So I think that's pretty sweet. Let me think here. So those were like the main questions that I was researching and whatnot. But I do think that there are other things that I think are just technological marvels. I think that the idea that the space shuttle itself is completely autonomous. Apparently, from the moment it launches until it docks with the ISS, that entire thing is automated. And the astronauts themselves, they have the ability to take over manual control at any point if they need to. But by and large, they're just sitting there. They're just sitting there enjoying the ride, which I think is a big difference compared to the old days when there was a fair amount of manual control, like when they were having the space shuttle coming back into re-entry. I think there was a certain level that was perhaps able to be handled autonomously, but I think like when it came to landing the ship, it had to be manually controlled. And I think there were certain components as well when they were up in space and stuff that also had to be done manually. So I think that's really neat. Another aspect of it too is the idea of being able to reuse some of the components from the shuttle. And furthermore, the idea that they have technology where like when again, I don't know all the terms of what the space shuttle consists of, but when you have certain parts that break away from the shuttle after it's gone to a certain altitude and they're able to start to like do away with the thrusters and kind of the body of the booster and that sort of thing. Some of those components actually are designed to find their way back to the launching pads. And it may not be necessarily like the original launching pad that they launched the shuttle from, but it is the coolest thing to see these parts actually make their way back and successfully land right where they're supposed to. I mean, honestly, it reminds me of Iron Man 3 when Tony Stark was playing around with like having his suit like actually come apart into multiple parts, and he could bring them and pull them back together from one point to another. I just think that kind of technological marvel is really neat. Were you able to see that yourself?
I didn't see that, but it makes total sense only because I think with the last testing, they're looking to reuse a lot of these parts, and all of these parts are falling into the ocean in random spots, and they got to go find them. I mean, that's going to cost a lot more money. I mean, it's research that's funded in the right direction, because if they don't have to pay people to go out into the ocean to find random shuttle parts, and they can all just land right back where excavation crews can go back and get them, whatever. Saves a lot of money and saves a lot of materials also. But with the shuttle landing right back, not that previous test, landing right back on its pad, I would assume that if they have that kind of technology and they want to reuse the parts, that they can make the parts do the same thing, or at least like maybe kind of have little guidance chips sort of things inside of them that can kind of push them in the right direction where they want them to land. So they have a very good idea.
Yeah. I totally was going to ask you something, and then it just kind of went into one side of the ear and then out the other ear.
Into orbit. Right.
It went into orbit. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the idea that this is no longer an exclusive government oriented experience, that actually the commercial district is now really starting to get their feet wet? You know, we not only have had SpaceX, but also Virgin has their own space program. I think Amazon has their own space program that they're working on. It really is interesting to see how we have a lot of more of the private sector get involved with not only like desiring to like have some sort of business model to get, you know, citizens and civilians, that sort of thing, up into space, but also how they probably have their input on pretty much every step of preparation and design, engineering, everything. And I think it's, you know, of course, not taking anything away from NASA, because NASA consists of a ton of extremely intelligent folks and that sort of thing. But what are your thoughts on the idea that moving forward, there is going to be kind of this ongoing partnership with NASA, you know, considering that NASA is a government agency, and there's probably a high likelihood that down the road, it as a more of a commercial private sector thing, they will probably be able to largely not have to rely as much on NASA.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, I think it's the way of the future. It's my mind likes to imagine, you know, science fiction stuff where, you know, space travel is normal, and this is the first step where if we just think the government, if we rely on the government to do this one thing, then you know, if that breaks down, then no one else can travel. Versus, I mean, if you consider, like, let's say you mentioned Virgin Airlines earlier. Let's say the Virgin Airlines was the only way to travel just from one state to the other state. And let's say I still lived in California and you lived in Texas. And so Virgin Airlines broke down, and now we can't see each other, and our families can't visit anymore because Virgin Airlines is the only plane that we can use, or the only train, or the only, you know, whatever. And so with competition, healthy competition like this, I mean, I think it advances technology, and I think it just provides more of a regular means to travel, or you could apply it to anything. I mean, competition in electronics, phones, game systems, music, you know, whatever. And so with the government, there is no competition. The government controls it. But now we can see that, yeah, there is definitely other avenues, and we can apply today's technology, not technology of 20 years ago. We can reuse, we can apply money correctly. And who knows, there might be even more companies that are also looking into it. And if this becomes more of a regular thing, then the costs are going to come down, and we might see regular space travel for regular civilians in our lifetime. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's particularly exciting. I know that right now you have the super rich that I think are making reservations so that they can be the first ones to go up as citizens to be able to have that type of experience. But I look forward to the day when it becomes more of an affordable thing for all of the regular people out there. And I got to say, I just have to take a moment to really tip my hat to Elon Musk, because it's amazing what he has been able to accomplish with his companies. I think that it's insane how he has shown that the electric vehicle market is one that can be done, and done stylishly. And the level of forethought when it comes to so many different parameters, and I don't know, like just different requests from customers and that sort of thing, to the solar panels, to now the SpaceX launch program. It's amazing how he has been able to overcome so many barriers to entry and red tape and everything else. And I think that there's a certain level of passion there where he is unrelenting and unwavering in terms of what his vision is that he wants to accomplish. And so nothing but respect and gratitude coming from us to Elon Musk on that. I'm sure he's got to be really happy right now.
I'm sure he's stoked. And you can find interviews with him on YouTube where people ask him about, you know, his passion, and they ask him what he thinks about space exploration, you know, mainly because he was developing SpaceX. and they'll ask him about AI and whatnot. And space travel is a huge passion of his, and he's basically saying what we all think. We're just not really exercising every day, which is, our planet is finite, and there's only so much space for us all to live, and there's only so many resources for us all to use. And at some point, we're going to have to expand. We have to travel outside the planet. And his view is, are we going to wait until we're desperate to finally explore? Or are we going to explore now so we know what's going on and you can prepare ahead of time? And it might be that he is just uber smart and uber wealthy, and so everybody pays attention to him. So I doubt he's the first person to think that way. But he is definitely one of the first people to use the talents that he was born with, and uses his wealth in a way that will better mankind in the entire planet. So yeah, my hat is tipped, and bartender, send a glass of wine that way, please.
Nice.
One of the finest house wines you have.
House wines. One of the things too that I think is worth noting is Elon Musk has a natural curiosity in a wealth of different markets and industries. One of the interesting stories that was told to me was actually by our buddy Sean, who's in the game industry. And back when he was
Shawnee.
Yeah, when he was working over at Infinity Ward on Call of Duty, he was talking about how they would pretty much on the regular, they would get various types of celebrity types coming through and getting a tour of the office space and that sort of thing. And one of those people was Elon Musk, how Elon Musk brought his kids in and just wanted to see the tour and kind of get an idea, like a high level idea of how games are made and that sort of thing. And I don't know. I think it's really neat to have someone who takes interest in all things. And I think that Elon Musk is one of those people that truly does that. Like he's not just doing it like, my kids will like this, so we'll go here. I think that he has an intense curiosity as to just how things work and have better understanding and be able to use that for practical application when it comes to his own passions of life. And I think that that's a very commendable attribute to have. I think that if more people were to take on that type of approach, I think that it would probably be, for one, it'd be enlightening. Like we all wouldn't be as naive or ignorant. But I also think too, it's amazing how subconsciously speaking, how those things can actually be added to your toolbox of life. So really, really neat individual. I think it's very cool to see what all he has done for humanity to this point, really. Hopefully he'll be able to get some rest because I know he's incredibly busy, but I am wondering what is next for him. What is if anything, like what kind of huge project does he have secretly waiting in the wings to actually unleash? But I don't want to digress too far into that. One of the other things I did want to mention when it goes back to the SpaceX program is apparently the next mission that they're planning for is that in 2024, they're actually going to return astronauts back to the moon. And then more of a longer term plan is the idea of getting astronauts to Mars. And I know that Elon has talked about how that is another dream that he has, is to try and figure out how to get mankind to Mars. And I think that would be a big undertaking as well. But my one thing that I do wonder about is what are the benefits of having astronauts go back to the moon, simply because we've done that already. And I'm not exactly sure what they're going to accomplish when they actually take those astronauts back up there. I've heard of little things here and there. Like I know there's interest in starting kind of a colonization on the moon and that sort of thing. But do you think that it's wise to go back to the moon, or do you think that we should just kind of couch that and set our sights for Mars?
Well, I think Mars is kind of Pandora's box. I think the moon is just one step closer to understanding Pandora's box and maybe shortening the distance or learning more about space. Or, if you think about it, there's really nothing on the moon except for rocks and dust, right? I mean, maybe I could be completely wrong, but from what I know, there's nothing really up there. However, if let's say they develop
Transformers are up there, Steve.
Transformers. Yeah, really. Yeah, right. They are. That is
Dark
true.
Side of the Moon.
You're right. Yeah, Pink Floyd's up there too. So let's say they use the moon to start developing a little space station and then they do launches from the moon and they can use less fuel that way because they're not rocketing up from Earth to go past the moon. They're already up there on the moon, and then they can do launches from there. And then, it might be easier to make a small space station on the moon than it would be just an orbit somewhere. That's my understanding of where the space station is currently. And so if you think about it that way, or maybe they want to put like a huge telescope there instead of like the telescope that's like in Hawaii, or for example, they can, and we're looking out from Earth. We're now looking out from the moon. It's for reasons like that. It definitely makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that there are definitely reasons to justify it for sure. And I do think that the idea of being able to colonize the moon is an interesting one, but I'm not exactly sure how to sustain that just because like to your point, there's nothing there in terms of resources to be able to do that. I think that we would have to be constantly sending up resources from Earth in order to sustain whatever kind of colonization we make up there. I do think that in terms of perhaps having some kind of controlled environment, maybe we could get to the point where it could be self-sustaining, where like you could have more of an autonomous approach where you could grow your own food and at least when it comes to fruits and vegetables, that sort of thing, as well as generate your own oxygen. Maybe there is something where the supply lift doesn't have to be as heavy as when they first start out. I'm not one of those experts at all in this whole thing, but just my initial thoughts on that. It does make me curious. I am interested in seeing what would happen as a result of that. And I'm just glad that there has been this renewed interest, this excited vigor when it comes to space exploration. And I really hope that this isn't the last that we'll see. I hope that there is more of a continuous involvement with it, because the space is in fact a big space. I mean, it is huge, and we have explored hardly any. I mean, to be perfectly honest, we haven't really explored it at all. We've gone to the moon and that's it. And I think there are all kinds of crazy wonders out there, and so it'd be interesting to see what happens. Do you have any concluding thoughts yourself, Steve?
No, Russ. Exciting times. Exciting times.
What was that, Steve?
Exciting times, Russ.
No, I heard that. You don't have to yell in my ear. You breathed in as though you were going to say something else. I just want to make sure you were just breathing, or were you going to say something else?
No, it's right.
Well, thank you, Steve. That wraps up this episode of Joygasm. Make sure you tune in next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to check out patreon.com/Joygasm, which is spelled JOYGASM, and consider becoming a monthly contributor. You'll get exclusive perks and early access to the show. Not to mention, it really helps us continue doing what we love to do. Also, you can follow us on social media and YouTube. Just do a search for Joygasm TV. Last but not least, search Joygasm TV on Twitch to see us stream our gaming adventures live every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. We'll see you all next week.